popping ubercharge, revving your minigun, detonating your stickies. Ew. These are all TF2 based euphemisms to describe that mystical dance between man and woman that always leads children to the worst of places. I happened to have some spare time on my hands the other day, so as a straight man with a wife, I did what literally anyone else would do in my situation. And spend actual units of time I will never get back going through the comics, in-game descriptions of items, and the official Valve animations to see who of our beloved TF2 Mercs have captured someone else's objective. If you'd like to help make my pleads for salvation at the pearly gates easier, you could consider subscribing. I'm trying to hit 8 billion subscribers before the end of the year, so if you'd like to be a part of that cause, I'd really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video, after this one you can check out this playlist on my channel which features lots of other like-minded content. There's some silly stuff, and there's also some genuinely good stuff, so there's something for everyone. Now continuing on with the video, we'll start by covering the Mercs who we know for a fact have marketed someone else's garden. Oh, I really don't like that one actually. These Mercs are Spy, obviously, Soldier, and surprisingly enough, Scout. Starting with the most obvious one first, Spy is a man who has been making baguettes longer than Scout has been alive, and in fact his frequent champagne popping with Scout's mother ended up making him a father. So there we are, Spy is our first winner in the game of Shag. And speaking of winners, let's move on to Soldier. So to my surprise, not a lot of people have really read the TF2 comics, and I guess it makes sense. If you go to play a shooting game, you go to play a shooting game, but I love the comics, I think they're great. And in the third installment in the overarching series called A Cold Day in Hell, we are introduced to Zana. Zana is one of Heavy's sisters, and is someone who has been trapped in a wooden cabin up in the mountains of Siberia ever since she was a young girl. So when Heavy brings Soldier, Pyro and Scouts back home with him, Zana sees Soldier and, well, rocket jumping ensues. And for the rest of the overarching series, it's played for jokes that their relationship is built on the fact that they're both completely insane and America exists. So yes, Soldier has a fiancée, and also has plans to do this. So, oh hey, look, a transition, let's talk about Scout. So believe it or not, Scout Scattergun has seen more use than you'd think it would have. I mean, they do call him the Maker after all. In terms of definitive proof of Scout getting up to it, we have this one scene from Expiration Dates, which I'm just gonna play.
No, I am great with girls. We both got buckets of chicken. You want to do it?
Okay.
But you...
And that's all the proof we need, really. So, despite all his scoutness, his atomizer has had more than a few jumps, which I guess makes sense because, you know, this meme. Now, as for our remaining Mercs, we have 2 left to talk about in tandem, and then the rest of them we have absolutely no evidence for one way or the other, so we're going to have to start making some guesses. And if you stick around long enough, I'll throw in some bonus characters from the comics and wider TF2 series as a whole at the end. But in order for me to do that, you see these numbers here? Fix them. Fix them. Fix these numbers! So the 2 Mercs we're going to talk about together are Demoman and Medic. Not a pairing you often see put together, yet when answering the question of who has popped ubercharge between these two, we have one domination voice line from Demo to take a look at.
Dominated, and I've been shagging your wife!
If what Demo is saying is not just a drunken rant, and is in fact true, that means that Medic has a wife, and Demo has been shagging her. I don't really know what to add to this. I so desperately want this to be true because that would be really, really funny. Yet we've had absolutely no mention of Medic's personal love life whatsoever, and Demo is always drunk, so this very well could just be the drunken ramblings of a Scotsman. But do you know what? If I just denied this as drunken ramblings, the sheer amount of hate I would have gotten would be absurd. So just for that, I'm counting this as canonical proof that Medic has a wife and that Demo has been doing you know what with her. I am so tired. So we are now left with the 4 Mercs we have absolutely no evidence to suggest one way or another have pushed the payload to its final objective. So we're going to have to guess whether they have or haven't purely based on their personalities. Let's start off with Sniper. So off the bat with Sniper, I'm going to tell you that I do not believe he has ever hitman someone else's heatmaker. That's even worse than the Market Garden one. And then I'm going to spend the rest of this section telling you why. So, as I literally just said, I don't think Sniper ever has. Now I understand being a probably late 40s man in the 70s and not doing something like that is quite unusual, but I have some evidence to back this up. Evidence of course coming in the form of his personality. We learn from the TF2 comic Blood in the Water that Sniper doesn't actually come from Australia and is in fact an adopted baby from New Zealand. We find this out at the same time as he does, and his reaction to finding out all of this seems to make a lot of sense to him. For example, he says he never really fit in with the other kids doing fistfights, instead choosing to jump up in trees and throw rocks at them. And he also says that he was never able to grow Australian-shaped chest hair. So it seems that even as a child, Sniper really was quite a loner. He never really felt like he fit in, and it seems others felt that about him as well. I feel these events eventually led him to become a Sniper because even in the TF2 scene, he is quite distant from the other Mercs, which fits his job pretty well. And it's because of his never fitting in with anyone else around him as a child, which led him to have quite a distant personality, which led him to be a Sniper, a very solo job, that I don't believe he ever would have had the opportunity to sharpen his kukri. Again, middle-aged man in the 70s, he very well could have. But purely going off the evidence of his personality and the comics, I don't have anything to support that. So I am saying that Sniper is our first virgin. It only took us 5 minutes and 30 seconds to call a Merc as such, but I believe Sniper is. And I also believe that it wouldn't really bother him one way or the other. Let's talk about Engie next. So as I did with Sniper, I'm more likely to give the mark of the V card to the Mercs who often spend a lot more time alone or away from other people. And Engineer is definitely a man who seems to spend a lot of time on his own tinkering with his own toys. Not only do we know that Engineer has an extensive educational background, but we also know that he currently spends most of his time making things. And if you fill in the gaps, that doesn't really seem to leave a lot of time for other things. So currently the odds aren't looking in his favour, and they don't get any better when we take a look at the comics. Engie rarely appears in the comics, but by far his most important appearances are those in the overarching story comics, where we learn that ever since the Mercs originally disbanded, Engineer has pretty much spent all of that time building life extender machines for the Administrator. That's about 6 months of just building his own contraptions, which I imagine he does a lot, which I imagine probably doesn't mean he has a lot of time for other things. And so I would like to declare that despite all of his century wrangling, I don't think the Engineer has ever been shown some southern hospitality. Again, like with Sniper, I just don't have any evidence to suggest that he ever has based on his personality, but we have a lot more evidence to suggest that he basically spends all of his time engineering, which you'd think after all of this time he'd be engineering his limit on, but again, doesn't really seem to bother him. And speaking about shorties, our penultimate character for the main Mercs is Pyro. So it is very well hinted at this point in time that Pyro is the woman, and it is just as hinted at that Pyro is probably sane, and in fact Pyro Vision itself is the problem, and I may or may not have a video on these two topics coming up in the future, you never know. But ignoring all of that, do I think that Pyro's oomph meter has ever been filled? Okay, that is by far the worst one in this video. Well, it's not a very easy question to answer. To answer this question, we'd need to know when Pyro first put the Pyro Vision goggles on, how long Pyro has been wearing them for, and what Pyro was doing before the Pyro Vision goggles came into play, and we have absolutely no idea for any of those questions what the answer could be. So, we're gonna say no. We're gonna say Pyro never has. Because what am I supposed to do? We know absolutely nothing about Pyro. Not his age, not his gender, not where he comes from, not his race, nothing. And so I'm getting angry over nothing. Right, we're calling it his virgin, and we're moving on. We're moving on to the final of our Mercs, Heavy. So it seems that Heavy probably hasn't had the best of lives at... Oh, I'm getting a call from my wife. I hope she's okay with the fact that I'm talking about fictional men's sexualities. Anyway, we learn from the comics that Heavy probably hasn't had the easiest of lives. In fact, his entire family had been imprisoned in a Russian gulag because his father was a counter-revolutionary. And whether you want to consider it canon or not, we also learn a bit about his childhood from Pokernight at the Inventory. From how he talks about boxing in Pokernight at the Inventory, it's either very likely he went to an all-boys school, or at a certain age the boys and girls were split into their various gender roles. So whilst everything may be leading to him being a no, I'm just going to play this one clip from Pokernight at the Inventory in full for you.
You have woman?
Not with me, no. But yeah, I have woman.
She is pretty?
Yeah, cute, glasses, red hair.
She has the red hair?
No, Heavy. She is not on the other team. You don't have to kill her.
No, but I love the red hair.
Well, you can't have her either. Maybe we can work something out.
So, Heavy and Tycho's wife work something out most likely. So, yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, let's say Heavy's a Chad as well. It's either that, or I have to now make a bunch of low-hanging fruit jokes about how Heavy and his minigun have a relationship. So that's it for our core gaggle of Mercs. However, as previously promised, we'll now cover a few reoccurring side characters. We'll do this in a bit of a lightning round style, but I want to first thank you for making it this far into this video. Comment down below Heavy the Chad to show me you made it this far into the video, and I'll be sure to like your comment. And with that being said, let's start with the most reoccurring of all reoccurring characters, that being Mr. mispiddling. Now, when talking about mistarpauling in this context, I'm of course going to have to bring up that one tweet by Jay Pinkerton. Now, for those who don't know, Jay Pinkerton, one of the official writers for the TF2 comics, made a now deleted tweet saying that they had plans to make Miss Peeling a lesbian in the upcoming comics. Now, I'm personally not a man who considers deleted tweets to be canonical proof of a character's sexuality, because no one should, but considering how the 7th comic is currently in production, I would be quite interested to see where this potentially goes. But considering her interactions with both the men and the women in the comics, for now we're going to say that Miss Ping Pong has never written on someone else's clipboard. We'll cover the Administrator and Saxton Hale next, because we know that both of these characters have been the man to someone else's co. In fact, they've also been the man to each other's co, evidenced as by this panel in the comics here. Now, if we're talking actual mans, we have the Mann brothers to discuss next. Now, the Mann brothers meet up in the comic Blood Brothers to discuss that they've wasted their entire lives bickering over nothing. And then they both decide that they're going to build a machine to do this. But of course they're killed before they have the chance. But just taking this as evidence, I think it's safe to assume that they haven't ever done anything with anyone before. And the last of the Mann brothers and the last of the characters we'll be covering today is Grey Man. And this is an easy one because he has a daughter. So we're just going to assume he has. And that's going to be all the characters we cover in this video. As you could probably tell, this was a video brought about by hours of missed sleep due to me being unwell. So I'm sorry if my voice sounded a little bit different in this video. But I've been working on this for so long that I'm starting to get better now, so whoop-de-doo. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. One final thank you from me for watching, and I will see you later down the sunny road.